Yeah, I was trying to. They made some changes. So I was trying to
Yeah.
How's everybody doing?
Good.
Good. Yeah, it's all right.
Yeah.
You ready?
Yeah.
We're gonna go ahead and get started if everybody has what they need. Okay, that be the case, we're gonna stand up, face Jerusalem, and open up. We ask that your brothers uncover your heads, sisters, please cover your heads as we stand and open up in prayer.
Our Father which art in heaven,
Our Father which art in heaven,
hallowed be thy name.
hallowed be thy name.
Thy kingdom come.
Thy kingdom come.
Thy will be done.
Thy will be
On
done.
earth
On earth
as it is in heaven.
as it is in heaven.
Give us this day our daily bread.
Give us this day our daily bread,
And forgive us our debts.
and forgive us our
We
debts,
forgive our debtors.
as we forgive our
And
debtors.
lead us not into temptation,
And lead us not into temptation,
but deliver us from evil.
but deliver us from evil.
Thine is the kingdom.
Thine is the
And the
kingdom,
power.
and the power,
And the glory.
and the glory
forever.
forever.
Praise the Lord.
Praise the Lord.
He is good.
For he is good,
And his mercy endures forever.
and his mercy endures forever.
Praise the Lord God of Israel.
Praise the Lord God of Israel.
And he is good.
For he is good,
And his mercy endures forever.
and his mercy endures forever.
These things we pray in Jesus' name.
These things we pray in Jesus'
The
name.
Holy One of
The
Israel.
Holy One of
The
Israel,
Mighty One of Jacob.
mighty one of
The
Jacob,
Lord of Lords.
Lord of lords,
King of Kings.
the King of kings.
Amen.
Amen.
Today's scripture reading will be taken from Isaiah, the 42nd chapter. Hear ye deaf, and look ye blind, that ye may see. Who is blind but my servant, and the deaf is my messenger that I sent? Who is blind is he that is perfect, and blind is the Lord's servant. Seeing many things, but thou observest not. Opening the ears, but he heareth not. Who among you will give ear to this? Who will hearken and hear for the time to come? Who gave Jacob for a spoil and Israel to the robbers? Did not the Lord? He against whom we have sinned. For they would not walk in his ways, neither were they obedient unto his law. Therefore he had poured upon him the fury of his anger and the strength of battle. And it had set him on fire round about, yet he knew not. And it burned him, yet he laid it not to heart. I read it to you from Isaiah, the 42nd chapter, verses 18 through 20, and verses 23 through 25. May the Lord add a blessing to the reading of his word in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Hallelujah. All praise is most certainly due to the Father. We thank him for his son, Jesus. He gave us a light to the world and a savior to all men of all nations. Really thankful to stand before you today on the Sabbath day. This is my favorite day of the week. Just a day in which you can forget about the trials and tribulations that you are going through and understand beyond a shadow of a doubt that there will be peace. You know, you don't have peace right now. One day, there's going to be peace upon this earth. So I'm truly thankful to stand before my brothers and my sisters in the faith on the Sabbath day. The title of today's lesson is Black History as Told by the Bible, The Color of Israel. Again, that title is Black History as Told by the Bible, The Color of Israel. This is a 4-part series. I'm dealing with the first part, which deals with color. And we do that usually around the time of Black History Month. And before I really get started, I just want to give you a background on Black History Month. Black History Month was started by Dr. Carter G. Woodson. He was a historian, a great historian, earned a PhD from Harvard. He wrote, his pivotal work was The Miseducation of the Negro. He once said it took him 20 years to forget the education that he received from Harvard. What he meant was that he had been miseducated by the European educational system. Even the upper echelons had miseducated him. It started out as a week, Black History Week, and he started it because he felt that Black history in general, history of Black people around the world, was not being told accurately. It was absent from the historical narratives that were given by the Europeans. And he picked February. Now, this is saying that, yeah, they gave us the shortest month too. That's not why it's in February. It's in February because he picked 2 people that were instrumental in Black history, specifically American Black history, and that was Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass. Both their birthdays were in February. That's why you have February. Not because it's the shortest day, the shortest week, shortest month in the year. In addition, it became Black History Month. Okay. John Hope Franklin, another great historian, said about Dr. Carter G. Woodson, he knew nobody. He was a famous, great historian of the modern era. He's passed on. But he said he knew nobody else that was so dedicated to the history of his people. And that's admirable, to be dedicated to telling your people about themselves. I'm here to tell you, if you are not dealing with what thus saith the Lord, you are lacking greatly when it comes to who we are as a people. The Bible tells us specifically that the children of Israel are Black people that have been scattered into slavery all over the world, and they got into bondage, into captivity via or by way of slave ships. So that's the lesson today. Black history as told by the Bible, the color of Israel. And it is the audacity, the unmitigated gall of white supremacy that you have to actually explain that Israel is a Black people. White supremacy is dominant throughout the world. The Bible tells you it's the time of the Gentiles. I have a question for you. What religion originated on the European continent? It's not a rhetorical question. That's a question for the brothers and sisters. My brother in the back shaking his head, he said none. None. No major religion was established on the European continent. How did they learn about the Messiah? How did they learn about the faith that was given to us directly from God? We went and gave it to them. That's how they got it. Just how they got civilization. They got civilization from other people. And they got specifically what became their adulterated version of Christianity. They got that from us. They distorted what we gave. And not only did they distort what we gave, they had the nerve to actually change the image of the people that this book is talking about. And to make matters worse, to make things more complicated, you have another people who are perpetrating the biggest fraud in the world, claiming that they are the children of God, collecting money, getting reparations from countries that had nothing to do with the Holocaust. And yet, we sit here, we have experienced the greatest tragedy in human history, and these same people would tell us to get over it. So we're going to deal with the color today. During the course of this lesson, we'll deal with the appearance of the patriarchs, and we will look at specific biblical accounts as well as historical records and archaeology pertaining to the appearance of the Israelites. And we'll look at the greatest Israelite. We'll look at even his color, who is none other than the Messiah. And we'll even see many images of him prior to the whitewashing of Jesus that has been done. Okay? Because they whitewashed him, they whitewashed all the patriarchs, they whitewashed the prophets, and they even whitewashed the laws, the statutes, the commandments, the faith system that was given, and put their own spin on it. And we'll see even where that came from. And we'll look at the people who, in silence, in obscurity, around the darker part of the world, say, yes, we're Israelites. All over. So again, the title is Black History as Told by the Bible, the Color of Israel. We're going to start off with Genesis, the 11th chapter, and this is the first part, color. Because you have to go through some things, because to the average person it sounds ludicrous, or it sounds like you're promoting black supremacy, or even some would even say that you are racist to bring this up, to say that the people of the book are black people. Matter of fact, the vast majority of the people that you read about in the Bible, particularly in the Old Testament, are all black people for the most part, for various parts. But Israel is a specific black people. So you have many things that people say. They would say that you're being racist. They're saying that you're dealing in black supremacy, and yet they don't think they're racist in actually changing the color of the people of the book. It'd be like if you made George Washington into a Chinese man. You showed a picture of a Chinese man and said, this is the first president of these United States of America. White folks would be upset. And rightfully so. Because that slave owner was white. He wasn't Chinese. Let's go to Genesis 11. This is Genesis 11. And we're going to pick it up at verse 10. Because here we want to read about the patriarch of Israel. None other than Abraham, the father of faith. And we're going to see something pertaining to the people where he came from, and the people in which the area he came from. This is Genesis, the 11th chapter. We're going to pick it up at verse 10. When you ready, go ahead.
These are the generations of Shem. Shem was 100 years old and begot Arphaxad 2 years after the flood. Okay, so we are dealing right now with the lineage of Shem. Okay, those who are Semitic. Okay, and because we are black, and because people, quite frankly, are ignorant of the Bible and history, they automatically assume, and they've done so, we'll find later, they've done so to their own convenience, that they want to say that all black people are from Ham. That's not true. There are black people from the line of Shem. We happen to be some of those people. You have Negroes. See, we are in the midst of an identity crisis at the moment. You have black people who talk about, they want to take hold of Egypt and that great civilization. We are not Egyptians. We are not Egyptians. What are you doing? So we need to break down just where we came from and who we came from. We are Semitic. We came from the line of Shem. But let's go to verse 27. Verse 27. When you ready, go ahead. These are the generations of Terah. Terah begot Abe, Nahor, and Haran, and Haran begot Lot. And Haran died before his father Terah in the land of his nativity, in Ur of Chaldee. Okay, so here we see Terah, and that was the father of Abram. And they were, they were from the land of Ur of the Chaldees. Ur of the Chaldees, the native city of Abraham, is in southern Babylonia. Okay? This is the area, we talk about Mesopotamia, in that area. Let's see what the people in that area looked like. So this is the appearance of the ancient Sumerians, because they were also called Sumerians. So now this is from the Introduction to the Study of African Classical Civilizations. It says the founders of the first Mesopotamian civilization were black Sumerians. Now when you go to school, they tell you that
that's the place the civilization started. And it has become a recent thing. When I say recent, I'm talking decades back, not yesterday, that they actually made these people white. Okay? And that's just the racism that you find in scholarship. But the people there were black people. That's a black civilization. So it said biblical land of Shinar or Sumer. The Sumerians, no doubt how they viewed themselves racially. The Sumerians called themselves Sagiga, the black-headed people. Sumer was at the crossroads of Asia, Africa, and Europe. While Sumer was not a homogeneous society, the blackheads of Sumer were politically and socially dominant. So you would say the vast majority of people in that place were black people. And then, prehistoric nations, it says the earliest colonists of Babylonia, where Abraham was from, were of the same race as the inhabitants of the Upper Nile. So now they concluded that they are the same people from the Upper Nile. We are talking about black people here. We're talking about black people here. We're not talking about Europeans, because that's the image they show you. Even in these little file textbooks that you get in school, they will show you Mesopotamians and they Europeanized. But that's not actually accurate according to European records. It's not accurate. Let's go to Genesis, the 41st chapter. Because we know he was the patriarch, and he had Isaac, Isaac had Jacob, and Jacob had 12 sons. These 12 sons started a nation. And just to show you an example of Europeanized thinking, our perception and our thinking about marriage is extremely from a European perspective. Because Jacob had 4 wives, and from those 4 wives had 12 sons, 1 daughter that started a nation. That was what was going on in that part of the world. So how did it become that it was such a thing, monogamy? And monogamy in the way in which we know right now is not biblical. You have monogamy in the Bible, don't get me wrong, but our perception that other ways that you read about in the Bible are immoral are because of Greco-Roman perspectives that have been superimposed upon the Bible and given to the world. That was not our system. That was not our system. How do you think they outgrew everybody and were growing so large in Egypt? When you look at Moses' census that he does, the households of Israel were huge. They didn't get that way from a monogamous system. They didn't. But now, I'm just giving you an example. That's just real. I'm just giving you an example of how things have been Europeanized that you don't even realize. This is Genesis, the 41st chapter and verse 41, because here we read about one of these patriarchs. This is Joseph. Genesis 41 and verse 41. Now he was a slave in Egypt. His brothers were jealous. He was sold, and he is now before Pharaoh because he interpreted the dream for the baker and the butler. And now he's before Pharaoh. Something's on Pharaoh's mind. He revealed it unto him, and let's see what happened. This is Genesis 41 and 41. Are you ready? Go ahead.
And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, See, I've set thee over all the land of Egypt.
So I've set thee over all the land of Egypt. Go ahead.
And Pharaoh took off his ring from his hand and put it upon Joseph's hand, and arrayed him in fisters of fine linen and put a gold chain about his neck.
So he gave him things that was symbolic of authority. He gave him a ring, then he arrayed him in vestures of fine linen and put a gold chain about his neck. He went from being a slave to second in command except for Pharaoh. That's the only one that was over him. But go ahead.
And he made him to ride in the chariot which he had. And they cried before him, bowed the knee, and he made him ruler over all the land of Egypt.
Go ahead.
And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I am Pharaoh, and without thee shall no man lift up his hand or foot in all the land of Egypt.
Go ahead.
And Pharaoh called Joseph's name Sabnath-Paneah, and he gave him to wife Asenath, the daughter of Potiphar, priest of On. And Joseph went over all the land of Egypt. So now it says he did all these things. He's showing him riding through, showing the people that he is in power. Up under him, just under him. And then he gave him a new name,
But it said something. He said he gave him a wife. It said, and Pharaoh called Joseph's name Zaphenath, and he gave him to wife Asenath, the daughter of Potiphar. So what did he have? He had an Egyptian wife. Why am I reading this? Because he the one that had Ephraim and Manasseh. So you have to think about it. How did these children look? Did they look like the European? Did they look like Joseph in the Technicolor Dreamcoat play that we watched? No, he didn't look like that. Let's read verse 50. Because he had some children. Verse 50.
And unto Joseph were born 2 sons before the years of the famine came, which was Asenath, the daughter of Potiphar, priest of On, barren to him.
So now he has 2 sons. Go ahead. What's their name?
And Joseph called the name of firstborn Manasseh. God said he had made me forget all my toil and all my father's house.
So now he gives him a name, Manasseh, and understand that's something else too. He gave him a name associated with what he was going on with, he was dealing with at that time with his creator in it. It said Manasseh. It said, for God said he had made me forget all my toil, all my father's house. In verse 52, it said, in the name of the second he called Ephraim, for God had caused me to be fruitful in the land of my affliction. Like I said, everything's been Europeanized. We walk around here even with European names. But our people, we will put the name of God in our name. So those are his 2 sons. Let's go to Genesis 42. Because he had him right before the flood, before the famine. And when the famine comes, his brethren are seeking food. Now they've sold him years prior to this, right? This was a long time in between their first meeting prior to him being sold and now. So this is 42 and verse 6. When you're ready, go ahead.
And Joseph was the governor over the land. And he was that sold to all the people of the land.
Go ahead.
And Joseph's brethren came and bowed down themselves before him with their faces to the earth.
And this was shown unto Joseph in a dream that this would happen. He said, 11 stars, the sun and the moon made obeisance unto him. That was showing that they were going to bow down to him at one point, even though he was sold. That's so it doesn't matter what the situation looks like right now. God is a deliverer. I don't care what it looked like right now. Joseph is a prophet. You're talking about a man who was in the dungeon. Not just in the dungeon, like he deserved to be there, falsely accused of attempted. Now he in the dungeon, but at this point, now they got to bow down to the one they sold. The Bible tells you that the fetters hurt him, but yet now he's in control. And what does it say when he saw them? Verse 7.
And Joseph saw his brethren, and he knew them, but made himself strange unto them, and spake roughly unto them.
Go ahead.
And he said unto them, whence come ye? And they said, from the land of Canaan to buy food.
Now it says he made himself strange unto them, and spake roughly unto them, and said, whence comest thou? Where you coming from? They said, from the land of Canaan to buy food. First of all, they coming from a land that's a bunch of black people there. But they were one black people dwelling amongst other black people. And so was Joseph, only he was in Egypt. And how do we know this? Verse 8.
And Joseph knew his brother, but they knew not him.
Joseph recognized his brothers, but they didn't recognize him. A simple summation would be, wait a minute, if he is white, like the so-called Jew today, then they would have understood that that was their brother. He would have stuck out. But no, if you got one black people amongst another black people, you can't tell. I'll give you a prime example of that. I know somebody, she said her husband was African. And she said that when she went to Nigeria, everybody thought she was Yoruba. She from out here somewhere though. You see what I'm saying? But she go to Africa amongst his people, and they looked at her, they just assumed. They started asking her. She said they kept asking her that. Why did they ask her that? Because she blended right in. Many of us in here could go to Nigeria, where they got most of us from, that part of the world. And if we don't open our mouth, they assume we one of them. But then we start talking, they say, oh. Okay. But let's go to the second reference to see what the ancient Egyptians looked like. Again, it is the audacity of white supremacy that you have to deal with even this. Because, why do you have to do that? Because the Egyptians made so many contributions to civilization, period. Okay? I can understand why the common average Negro will want to attach himself or herself to Egypt. Because Egypt was one of the greatest, if not the greatest civilization ever. When you're talking about contributions to humanity, the number. You're talking about papyrus, you're talking about paper. You're talking about medical advancements. You're talking about cataract surgery in ancient times. Cataract surgery didn't just start now. When you walk around with them big glasses, they were doing that in ancient Egypt. Sacred geometry. When you look at the architecture of the pyramid, they built that according to Pi. It aligns with Orion. It has a consistent temperature, regardless of what it is outside, of 68 degrees. And they still cannot recreate the pyramids with the technology and the machinery that they have today. You talk about Greek philosophy, read a book called Black Athena by Martin Burnett. He tells you that Greek philosophy, all these Greek philosophers, they went and they studied in Egypt, in the Egyptian mystery schools. That's what they did. So, if the Egyptians are a black people, how do you justify the mistreatment of black people? You see what I'm saying? You can't justify saying that these people are less than, so it's okay to mistreat them if the Egyptians are black people. And that's why they've gone through such efforts to make them even white. Even today, when you look at these movies, they got another movie coming out. Well, that one's about Jesus, but they had one not too long ago. Was it Kings and Princes or something like that? It was supposed to be Moses and the Egyptians, everybody white. Pharaoh white, Moses white. Same garbage they was doing with the Ten Commandments every Easter. But when you look at the architecture, the archaeology, you understand that the Egyptians were black people. This is a view of the Sphinx near Cairo, and understand if you can tell, it was under sand. But it was a whole Sphinx, and that's before the nose was whatever happened to it. Whatever happened to it, because I don't know. So people, that's the common thing people say. Napoleon shot the nose off. There's no record of that. You can't prove that. But you do see a lot of times with Egyptian artifacts of people that the nose is gone, and this you can look at old drawings, you can tell it was a broad nose. And here we have Gavar who etched the Sphinx. He accompanied or was with Napoleon, okay, in 1798 on the Egyptian campaign. And he says, though its proportions are colossal, the outline is pure and graceful. The expression of the head is mild, gracious, and tranquil. The character is African. He's talking about the Sphinx. He said, it looks like an African. I've even seen forged drawings of the Sphinx, and he got a pointy nose. But when you look at the records, again, of Europeans, they tell you that he got that big nose. He can suck up a lot of air with that nose. So this is again, when you look at the artifacts, this is Khufu. That's his birth name of the 4th dynasty, ancient Egyptian pharaoh who ruled in the first half of the Old Kingdom period. Because of the common record, they have 3 periods in Egyptian history. Okay? Now that timeline, I know you can debate that timeline, but nevertheless, this is not a white man. This is a relief from Thebes, the temple of Hatshepsut. She was the first female pharaoh. You often see her with the fake beard in statues. That's in 1480 BC. Again, timeline, that's the one that's accepted. But these are infantry men with battle axes. These are not Europeans. These are Egyptians. This is from Ramses II, his temple. That's Pharaoh. Again, he's not Egyptian. I mean, he's not European. And then another thing, you have Egypt right now that is an Arab country, because these white Arabs have came over. Because the original Arabs look like us, quite frankly. But they've come in and they've done things in it. So you got a lot of things going on. If you just look at how things are right now, that's like America. If you look at America right now, you wouldn't think that there were indigenous people all over this land. You wouldn't think that the Indians are the ones that made Ridge Road. You wouldn't think that they were walking through that world. You wouldn't think that Indian, you know what Indiana means? Land of the Indians. That's what it means. You wouldn't think that, because where they at? They on these what do they call it? Hey, reservations. Hey. All right, this is Queen Tai, the great royal wife of the Egyptian pharaoh Amenhotep III. Again, these are not Europeans. Definitely not a European. That brother's blue black, and ain't nothing wrong with that. Mentuhotep was a pharaoh of the 11th dynasty who reigned for 51 years. Nothing wrong with that. So how you get a European out of this? White supremacy, racism. And again, you have to go through this and explain it, because there's been such a whitewash. Merenptah, daughter of Akhenaten. Akhenaten is the one that introduced monotheism to Egypt. That's his daughter. She looked like a sister from around the way. Those, yes, I'm happy with his nose. I ain't saying that. I said who did it, but as you can tell, you see his hair? It doesn't look like wolf hair. He got locks. Another one. Amenemhet, the third, again, locks. Mooney, something happened to his nose too. But you can look at them lips and tell. You can tell. That's the car of Tutankhamun. That's the mannequin of Tutankhamun. See, these were not Europeans. This is Herodotus. Just like Carter G. Woodson in America, amongst black people, he is known as the father of black history. Herodotus is known as the father of history. He was a Greek who traveled around Babylonia. You read his histories. He traveled to Egypt as well. And I'm not going to read all of this, but indirectly he tells you what color the Egyptians are, the Ethiopians, as well as the Libyans. And when you look at the sons of Ham in Genesis, it makes sense. Because those are the ones that were Put is Libya, Mitzrayim is Egypt, and Cush is Ethiopia. But he says, who are black color by reason of the burning heat. Even Ethiopia means burnt face. That's what it means. This is Sheikh Anta Diop in his book African Origin of Civilization, Myth or Reality. He says Herodotus, because white scholars later on, let's look at the time real quick. You're talking 484 to 425 BC when he traveled to Egypt, okay, and when he's writing. Now, scholars many years later say, white scholars say Herodotus didn't know what he was talking about because he made Egyptians black. And he did it more than once. And he wasn't trying to prove anything, he was just telling what he saw. So now, Sheikh Anta Diop, who had a PhD, he had 5 of them in physics. He had one in physics, one in African history, one in Egyptology, one in linguistics, and one in anthropology. He said Herodotus, he had 5 of them. He has a university named after him. He said Herodotus may be mistaken when he reports the customs of a people, when he reasons more or less cleverly to explain a phenomenon. Meaning you can see a custom and not exactly understand what's going on. But he said one must grant that he is at least capable of recognizing the skin color of the inhabitants of the countries he has visited. A child can do that. A child could do that. And I want to point out something. It's a study of Egyptology. You see, because Europeans have made that because they want to be gatekeepers over the information dealing with Egypt. That's what they want to do. Because again, if the Egyptians are black, it's a problem. This is an Egyptologist. Some of them told the truth. This is an Egyptology. His French, Gaston Maspero, he lived in the 19th century, 1846 to 1916. He said, by the almost unanimous testimony of ancient historians, Egyptians belong to an African race which first settled in Ethiopia on the Middle Nile. Following the course of the river, they gradually reached the sea. See, because Ethiopian, that was a thing too. Who came first, Ethiopia or Egypt? Many believe that Ethiopia actually was first and was greater, and then Egypt was a colony of Ethiopia. So let's go back to the scripture. Let's go to Exodus, the 2nd chapter. So here you have a people, because this people, Israel, they went into Egypt, okay, and it was told what was going to happen to them when they were in Egypt, right? Abraham was shown in a vision that they were going to serve a people and be exploited and enslaved for 400 years. So now we're going to read about that experience. This is Exodus 2. And we're going to read about this one individual in particular, who's none other than Moses. This is Exodus 2 and verse 1. Because this is the time during which Egyptian bondage is going on and genocide is going on. The Egyptian Pharaoh, one who didn't know Joseph, rises up, looks at the birth rate of Israelites and says, this is a threat to national security. What we're going to do is, we're going to kill all the males and keep the female. And that's what they do in genocide. You look at Bosnia, that's what they did. They're going to keep the female and kill all the males. Because you are what your father is, because he is the seed bearer. Same thing in Rwanda. Kill the males, impregnate the females, often through rape. Because that's what genocide is. It's the wiping out of a particular people. When you look at the etymology of the word, it tells you that. But let's go to Exodus 2 and verse 1. You ready? Go ahead.
And there was a man of the house of Levi, took the wife, a daughter of Levi. And the woman conceived and bare a son.
Go ahead.
And when she saw him that he was a goodly child, she hid him 3 months.
She had to hide him because of the situation. Because the little babies were getting killed. Same thing when Jesus was when he was born. But verse 3.
And when she could no longer hide, she took for him an ark of bulrushes and dabbed it with slime and with pitch and put the child therein. And she laid it in the flags by the river's brink. See, it got to a point where she couldn't no longer hide if she couldn't do anything else to keep it alive. You know, our people, they just go right to the abortion clinic and kill their baby now. It's no thing. Get them a few $100, end of life, and go on about their business. But it says, and the woman conceived and bare a son, and when she saw him that he was a goodly child, she hid him 3 months, but she could no longer hide him. She took for him an ark of bulrushes and daubed it with slime and with pitch, and put the child therein, and she laid it in the flags by the river's brink. Verse 4. And the sisters stood afar off to wit what would be done to him.
This is Miriam trying to find out what's going to happen to her baby brother. Verse 5.
And the daughter of Pharaoh came down to wash herself at the river. And her maid walked along by the river's side.
Go ahead.
And when she saw the ark among the flags, she sent her maid to fetch it.
So now the daughter of Pharaoh, we see what the Egyptians look like, right? The daughter of Pharaoh, she's washing herself with her maids. And she saw the ark, she sent her servants to go fetch it. Verse 6.
And when she had opened it, she saw the child, and behold, babe wept, and she had compassion on him, and said, this is one of the Hebrews' children. So
she saw that baby and had compassion on him. You know how it is when people will just love a baby, right? My children were young, you know, I might be out with them, I was by myself, and you know, quite frankly, you saw this amongst Europeans, they want to come up, oh, he's so cute, back up off of him. Because when he's 12, you're going to be locking your door when you see him. He's going to walk past you, you're going to be clutching your purse. He tried to get on the elevator, you're going to be trying to get out. So don't get in his face now. But a baby, she had compassion on him. This is one of the Hebrews' children. Verse 7.
Then said his sister to Pharaoh's daughter, shall I go and call to thee a nurse of the Hebrew woman, that she may nurse the child for thee?
So now, because she know who the child's mother is, it's her mother. Go ahead.
And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, go. And the maid went and called the child's mother. And Pharaoh's daughter said unto her, take this child away and nurse it for me, and I will give thee thy wages. And the woman took the child and nursed it. And the child grew, and she brought him unto Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son.
So now Moses became the daughter of Pharaoh. And it said, and she called his name Moses. And she said, because I drew him out of the water. So why am I reading this? Because Egypt was the Egyptian household, not just the Egyptian household, but specifically up under Pharaoh's household, which where the daughter comes from. That was a covert unto Moses. Now it is not probable that he looked very different from a people that he's committed genocide against, that he would stay in that household. That's not what was going on. But if he looked like, if the Egyptians looked like the Israelites, then that could be done easily. Like the example I gave earlier. If you go to Nigeria, right? If they take a baby here, black baby from Watts or from Gary or Detroit somewhere, drop him off in Nigeria, he grew up there, nobody will be the wiser. So it's probably, that's what happened. That Egypt was a covert for Israel, and the only way that, for this Israelite specifically, and the only way that could take place is if he looked like the Egyptians. And we see what the Egyptians look like. Okay? We see what the patriarch looked like. But let's go to Matthew 2. Matthew, the gospel according to Matthew chapter 2, because Moses was not the only one that used Egypt as a covert, as a covering, as protection during trying times. This is Matthew 2, and we're going to pick it up at verse 13. Matthew 2 and verse 13. Because here we have the flight into Egypt by Joseph, Mary, and the Messiah, who was a baby at this time. Because Herod, who was threatened by a proclamation that the wise men came and said, where's he that is born King of the Jews? So he was threatened by that. And so they had to flee. Because he was killing, just like Pharaoh, he was killing the Israelite babies. So let's see where he went. This is Matthew 2 and verse 13. You ready? Go ahead.
And when they were departed, behold, the angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream, saying,
go ahead.
Arise and take the young child and his mother, and flee into Egypt.
And flee into Norway.
And flee into Egypt.
Go to France.
And flee into Egypt.
Run up into Great Britain.
And flee into Egypt.
Flee into Egypt. You ever notice Israel is consistently going south, not north? This is not the only time that's happened, but they are consistently doing that, going up under the darker races when they're oppressed to blend in. So it says, arise and take the young child and his mother and flee into Egypt. Go ahead.
And be thou there until I bring thee word. For Herod will seek the young child to destroy
He's going to seek the young child to destroy you. You better go into Egypt. It's just like if, I'm not going to put y'all in. Let's say I commit a crime and I'm on the run. I'm not running amongst them. I'm not running in the month. I might be around here somewhere. I'm not going to Munster. What am I going to Munster for? So I can get caught? They looking at me already. I'll jump. No, I'm going to go somewhere where I can hide out. I might be in Atlanta somewhere. I'm not going with a bunch of Negroes. People look like me. I'm not going to Munster. Did you read verse 15?
Verse 14.
Verse 14, thank you.
When he arose, he took the young child and his mother by night and departed into Egypt.
So he did as instructed. He went into Egypt. And then it says, and was there until the death of Herod, that it might be fulfilled which was spoken of the Lord by the prophet, saying, what?
Out of Egypt have I called my son.
Out of Egypt have I called my son. That's quoted from Hosea, chapter 1. That's the son that came out. Yeah, you had Israel, his firstborn, but also you had the Messiah, So let's go to back to Exodus. So Egypt was a covert for him. This for the Messiah as well as Moses. And there are many parallels between Moses and the Messiah, but that's a whole nother thing. Let's go back to Exodus. We're going to pick it up at Exodus chapter 2 and verse 11 and see what Moses looked like even further. We want to cement this thing. This is Exodus 2 and verse 11. When you're ready, go ahead.
And the Lord said unto him, where made man's mouth?
Exodus 2. Did I say Exodus 2 and verse 11? That's okay. Exodus 2 and verse 11.
And it came to pass in those days when Moses was grown, that he went out unto his brethren and looked on their burdens, and he spied an Egyptian, smiting an Hebrew, one of his brothers.
Okay, so now Moses is a grown man, right? And he sees one of these Egyptians oppressing one of his brothers. See, oppression can come from a lot of different people. We've been oppressed by a lot of different people. When the transatlantic slave trade was on the scene, there were people who looked like us, but were not of us, selling us to Europeans. Now, granted, the Europeans had a system in place, but yeah, there was a lot of people. The Arabs were selling us. So don't look at it just like it's just white people only. But it says, and it came to pass in those days when Moses was grown, that he went out unto his brethren and looked on their burdens, and he spied, or he saw an Egyptian smiting in the Hebrew, one of his brethren. He knew who he was. Verse 12.
And he looked this way and that way. When he saw that there was no man, he slew the Egyptian and hid him in the sand.
Some things are just Negro tendencies. When you see stuff like that, it's like, I can see one of us doing something like that. He looked to him. Bury him. And bury him in the sand. Okay, go ahead.
And when he went out the second day, behold, two men of the Hebrews strove together. And he said to him that did the wrong, wherefore smitest thou thy fellow?
He said, man, why y'all fighting? That's the Negro tendencies too. Black unity? Yeah, okay. We fight each other right now. But go ahead.
And he said, who made thee a prince and a judge over us?
Man, Negro tendencies. That's just like the one doing wrong. You tell him, hey, you doing wrong. He said, man, who made you a judge? Even though God did make him one. He said, who made thee a prince and a judge over us? And then he said, what?
Intendest thou to kill me, as thou killest the Egyptian?
You gonna kill me just like you killed the Egyptian? Go ahead.
And Moses feared and said, surely this thing is known.
Now it's trouble. Go ahead.
Now when Pharaoh heard this thing, he sought to slay Moses. But Moses fled from the face of Pharaoh and dwelt in the land of Midian. So
now he flees and he goes into Midian, and he sat down by a well. And what happens next? Verse 16.
Now the priest of Midian had 7 daughters, and they came and drew water and filled the troughs to water their father's flock.
So the priest, the high priest of Midian, Jethro, he had some daughters. They coming to do their chores. Verse 17.
And the shepherds came and drove them away. But Moses stood up and helped them.
So, go ahead.
And watered their flock.
So Moses stands up for these 7 daughters, and he helped them watered their flock. Verse 18.
And when they came to Ruel, their father, he said, how is it that ye have come so soon today?
So they asked him, how is it that you've come so soon today? Ruel is another word. We still talking about Jethro, but go ahead.
And they said, an Egyptian delivered us out of the hand of the shepherd.
And they said, a what?
An Egyptian delivered us out of the hand of the shepherd.
They looked at Moses and assumed that he was an Egyptian. Just like Joseph's brethren looked at him and assumed that he was an Egyptian. Why? Because the Egyptians and Israelites looked alike. Again, let's cement this thing further. Let's see what the miracles that this deliverer did that show us even what he looked like. See, we've proven this thing even indirectly. This is Exodus, the 4th chapter, and we're going to pick it up at verse 1. Exodus 4, verse 1. When you ready, go ahead.
And Moses answered and said, but behold, they will not believe me, nor hearken unto my voice, for they will say, the Lord hath not appeared unto thee.
Negro tennis. Man, God ain't appeared unto you. Man, you hear him? But verse 2.
And the Lord said unto him, what is that in thine hand? And he said, a rod.
Go ahead.
And he said, cast it on the ground. He cast it on the ground, and it became a serpent. And Moses fled from before it.
Tendency. Verse 4.
And the Lord said unto Moses, put forth thine hand and take it by the tail. He put forth his hand and caught it. It became a rod in his hand.
So now he's showing you the power of God. So that's what he gave him, that so he would be able to convince the people that this is not something he's just saying. But verse 5.
That they may believe that the Lord God of the fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob had appeared unto thee.
So the God of your people want to make them believe that he have appeared unto you. That's why he's giving him this power, and he had another miracle. Verse 6.
And the Lord said furthermore to him, put now thine hand into thy bosom.
Go ahead.
And he put his hand into his bosom. And when he took it out, behold, his hand was leprous as snow.
So now he puts his hand in his bosom, and he pulls it out, and it's leprous as snow, meaning it's white as snow. Verse 7.
And he said, put thine hand into thy bosom again. And he put his hand into his bosom again and plucked it out of his bosom. And behold, it was turned again as his other flesh.
So then he puts it back and it's turned as his other flesh. Why am I reading this? Because what kind of miracle would it be if Moses looked like the dominant depiction today? A European, if he looked like Charleston Heston in the movie. And he noticed that scene, that this right here wasn't in the movie. That wasn't in the movie. Why not? Because you got a white man, he gonna put his hand in his bosom and his hand gonna come out white. What is that? That's just gonna look like ash. But if you're a darker brother and you put your hand in your bosom and it comes out leprous as snow, what's going on? I was gonna tell me that this AT&T thing. There we go. All right. So leprous as snow, and I want to make it clear because I just want to show you this, the contrast. Here you see somebody who has leprosy. You see what kind of miracle that would be? If he's this color, then his hand come out like that. And there's two kinds of leprosy. There's the kind of leprosy that disfigures you. Where you have the lesions and you have the growths, and then you have a clean leprosy that the Bible talks about, where your skin is just white and that's it. Okay? So you can see here, you can just see here what that would be like. And why that would be a miracle. Let's go to Acts. Let's go to Acts, the 21st chapter. Because we have another Israelite here who's mistaken as an Egyptian. This is Acts, the 21st chapter. And we want to pick it up at verse 37. Acts 21 and verse 37. The Acts of the Apostles, chapter 21 and verse 37. When you're ready, you go ahead.
And as Paul was to be led into the castle, he said unto the chief captain, May I speak unto thee? Who said, Canst thou speak Greek?
So now we have the one who was the apostle to the Gentiles. I talked about in the introduction how this faith was spread unto the world. The Great Commission was going to all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Ghost, teaching all nations. So he specifically, that was his job, to be an apostle or a messenger or an ambassador to, that's what an apostle is, to the Gentiles, one that has a specific message from God. That's what an apostle is. Maybe people just put that title on themselves. And God haven't talked to them. Nevertheless, he wants to speak to this man. He said, Canst thou speak Greek? You know something about Paul? He said, I speak more languages than many of you. So he knew Greek. And what was the response to the man? Are you ready to go ahead?
Art not thou that Egyptian?
He said, who said to him, Canst thou speak Greek? He said, art not thou that Egyptian? He thought he was an Egyptian. Go ahead.
Which before these days menaced an uproar and led us out into the wilderness 4,000 men that were murderers. But Paul said, I am a man which am a Jew of Tarsus, a city in Sicilia, a citizen of no mean city. Now beseech thee, suffer me to speak unto the people. Now
he said he was a Jew of Tarsus. Commonly he would have been, because for the most part, at this time, all that's left is the Judeans. Okay? The son of those, because the northern tribes, the 10 tribes of the northern kingdom, they were in captivity. We're going to talk about them a little later. So at this time, when they were allowed to go back during the days of Ezra and Nehemiah, who went back mainly were Judeans. that had went into captivity in 586 BC through Nebuchadnezzar and the Babylonians. So these are the ones, and then amongst that southern tribe, who do you have? You had Judah, and then you had the smaller Benjamin, and then you had Levi sprinkled in there. Okay, but let's go to Philippians, the 3rd chapter, because although he says he's a Jew, he's speaking commonly, because he specifically gives you his pedigree. So this is Philippians. We want to pick it up at Philippians, the 3rd chapter, and he's going to give us his pedigree. This is Philippians 3 and verse 3. When you ready, go ahead.
For we are the circumcision, which worship God in the Spirit.
So we are the circumcision, meaning we are the ones who circumcised. That's a sign of the covenant. Even you see that even with Abraham. That was a sign of the covenant. So he said, we are the circumcision, which worship God in the Spirit. Go ahead.
And rejoice in Christ Jesus and have no confidence in the flesh. Though I might also have confidence in the flesh.
He said, I don't have confidence in the flesh, although I could. Let me tell you why. Go ahead.
If any other man thinking that he had wherewith he might trust in the flesh, I more.
Let me tell you about my pedigree. Go ahead.
Circumcised the 8th day of the stock of Israel.
Circumcised on the 8th day. See, that's what we did. We had names with our God in the name, and we circumcised our males on the 8th day. My sons were circumcised on the 8th day. So it says circumcised the 8th day. Go ahead.
Of the stock of Israel, of the tribe of Benjamin.
Of the stock of Israel. So he said, I'm an Israelite. Right? And it says, I'm of the tribe of Benjamin. Go ahead.
And Hebrew of the Hebrews. That's touching the law of Pharisees.
He said, I'm Hebrew of the Hebrews, touching the law of Pharisees. Why am I dealing with his pedigree? Because if you think about this thing, how is it these people white? You got Joseph mistaken for an Egyptian. Him and his sons comprised one tribe, Ephraim and Manasseh, or Joseph. That's one tribe. That's a different tribe. Then you got Moses mistaken as an Egyptian. He was from the tribe of what? Levi. So you got 2 tribes here. We got Jesus, the Messiah. He's using Egypt as a covert. The Messiah was part of what tribe? Judah. Then you got Paul, who was mistaken for an Egyptian. He's of what tribe? Benjamin. You got all these tribes right here. Perhaps Israel is a black people. That's why I wanted to point that out. Because you got various tribes, black people. Now let's go to number 6. Because we're going to look at a different aspect of phenotype. Okay? And when I say black, I'm speaking commonly because we know we shades of brown. Some of us who have the darkest hue. Now I want to look at also the hair. Like I said, another aspect of phenotype. This is number 6. And we want to pick it up at verse 1. Number 6 and verse 1. When you ready, go ahead.
Then the Lord speaking to Moses, saying, speaking to the children of Israel, and saying,
go ahead.
When either man or woman shall separate themselves to vow of a Nazarite, separate themselves into the Lord.
Okay, so he's talking about the order of the Nazarites. Those who take the Nazarite vow. The Nazarite, to be a Nazarite, Nazarite means one that is separated. Okay, so you got a holy people, but then you got some that even separated amongst those holy people. He said, so they separate themselves unto the Lord. And we're going to see some of the things that they do in that separation. Verse 3.
He shall separate himself from wine and strong drink, and shall drink no vinegar of wine, or vinegar of strong drink. Neither shall he drink any liquor of grapes, nor eat moist grapes, but dry. So now wine was something that we consume. You consistently hear about the Bible talking about wine presses, right? You see Jesus, they call him wine bibber. They called him a wine bibber. But the Nazarite was to refrain from the consumption of wine and strong drink. Verse 4. All the days of the separation shall he eat nothing that is made of the vine tree, from the kernels even to the husk. So he's not even supposed to consume anything of the vine tree or the kernels even to the husk. Go ahead. All the days of the vow of his separation, there shall no rays to come upon his head. Now wait a minute, there's something else. Like I was talking about phenotype. Now it says he's not even supposed to cut his hair. Go ahead. until the day be fulfilled in which he separated himself unto the Lord.
He said, not until those days are ended in which of his separation from the Lord. Go ahead. To the Lord. Go ahead.
He shall be holy,
Uh-huh.
and shall let the locks of the hair of his head grow.
It said he shall be holy or sanctified. Then it said he's going to let the locks of his hair grow. Now you think about the people who have locks. You have to have a certain type of hair to have locks. Usually, I'm not saying that Europeans cannot lock their hair, because I've seen it. They can, but usually you see that amongst people who have, let's just say, kinkier hair. Because a straight coil or straight hair is much harder to lock than a one that is coiled, right? Our hair was the way it is to propel heat. That's why our hair is like it is. It's not bad hair. That's that good hair. That's that good hair. We want to destroy our hair. Let the relaxer seep all down into our skull, into our brain. But we got the good hair. We try to look like somebody we not, because our people had locks. Let's go to Judges, the 13th chapter, and see one who had these locks. Case of the Nazarite Samson. This is Judges, the 13th chapter, and we're going to pick it up at verse 1. When you're ready, go ahead. Judges 13 and 1. And the Judges is the book in which Israel had pretty much gone astray. They would do what they wanted. Sometimes these judges, after they would sin, the Lord would bring oppression from other people, and they would cry out to God, and then the Most High, he sent them a deliverer or a judge. And here we see his birth. This is Judges, the 13th chapter, and verse 1. When you ready, go ahead.
And the children of Israel did evil again in the sight of the Lord.
Consistently. Go ahead.
And the Lord delivered them into the hand of the Philistines 40 years.
Uh-huh.
And there was a certain man of Zorah, of the family of the Danites, whose name was Manoah, and his wife was barren and bare not.
Go ahead.
And the angel of the Lord appeared unto the woman, and said unto her, Behold now, thou art barren and bearest not, but thou shalt conceive and bear a son.
It was amongst Israel a bred culture that children were desired. They were not looked upon as a burden, so to speak. Women wanted children. And there was literally a stigma for not having one or for being barren. You see that consistently. You see that with Sarah. You see that between Rachel and Leah. And you see that with Hannah. You see that here. That the desire to have children, to have a son. It says, Behold, now thou art barren, and bearest not, but thou shalt conceive and bear a son. Verse 4.
Now therefore beware, I pray thee. Drink not wine nor strong drink.
Go ahead.
And eat not any unclean thing.
Go ahead.
Below thou shalt conceive and bear a son, and no razor shall come on his head. For the child shall be called a Nazarite unto God in the womb, and he shall begin to deliver Israel out of the hand of the Philistines.
So it said his son's gonna be a Nazarite. He told her, don't drink, don't consume any wine, but strong drink, and eat not any unclean thing, because you're going to have a son. He's going to be a Nazarite, and locks of his hair are going to grow. And we're going to see a picture of Samson, one of the earliest depictions of Samson in a moment. But let's go to, actually towards the end, but let's go to Judges 16 and see something about Samson's hair. See, we're just dealing with phenotyping. Judges 16 and verse 12. Judges 16 and verse 12. When you're ready, go ahead.
Delilah therefore took new ropes and bound him therewith, and said unto him, The Philistines be upon thee, Samson, and there were liars in the weight about him in the chamber. He brake them from off his arms like a thread.
So now this Delilah was Samson's second wife. She betrayed him to the Philistines, and he, not being very bright, we know the story, gives his strength over to this woman who destroyed him. As a man, don't ever give your strength unto somebody else. Be a man and do what's right at all costs. Don't be influenced by a woman. We see that with Adam and Eve. We see that here. And we see what you should do with Job. But nevertheless, he keeps telling her these things that aren't true, because she's all the time trying to betray him. But verse 13.
And Delilah said unto Samson,
Uh-huh.
hitherto thou hast mocked me and told me lies.
Uh-huh.
Tell me wherewith thou mightest be bound. And he said unto her, that thou weavest the 7 locks of my head with the web. And she fastened it with the pin and said unto him,
Mm-hmm.
the Philistines be upon thee, Samson. And he awakened out of his sleep and went away with the pin of the beam and with the web.
So here, what I'm reading this because you even see his hair. He has 7 huge locks or big locks. If you know anything about locks, that's a lot of hair. You making it if you only got 7 locks. So he has 7 locks on his head, and he's been growing these since a child. So they're very long, I would imagine. And that's just the phenotype. So we got a black people who have kinky hair. Let's go to Ezekiel the 8th chapter and find out what Ezekiel's hair was looking like. This is Ezekiel the 8th chapter. We're going to read 1 verse here. Because he has a vision here. When he's describing early on these angels, and something happens to him. One appears unto him. It says in verse 2, then I beheld in lo a likeness as the appearance of fire from the appearance of his loins, even down with fire from his loins, even upward as the appearance of brightness, as the color of amber. So he's having this vision, and one is there. It's not a regular man that's before him. And what happens? Verse 3.
And he put forth the form of an hand and took me by the lock of mine head.
Go ahead.
And the Spirit lifted me up between the earth and the heaven and brought me the visions of God to Jerusalem.
So now he picks him up by the what? By the lock of his hair. Picked him up by the lock of his hair. Just like Absalom. He had all that hair that he would have to pull. He got his locks caught in a tree. You read further in Ezekiel, the 44th chapter, that when the kingdom is established in the Levitical priesthood and even the sons of Zadok, that's going to be put into sacrifice, going to be put into motion once again. Those Levites going to pull their locks. See, that's not just something that's not something that Lil Wayne came up with, or even Bob Marley came up with. No, or the Rastafarian came up. No, that's in the Bible. Let's go to. We good on this. Yeah, we good on that. I just want to show that. I just want to read about the lock of his head. Let's go to Ezekiel. Go back a little bit to Ezekiel the 5th chapter. We're gonna find out what he did with that hair. Ezekiel 5 and verse 1. Ezekiel 5 and verse 1. Are you ready? Go ahead.
And thou, son of man, take thee a sharp knife, take thee a barber's razor, and goes it to pass upon thine head and upon thy beard.
So he said, take a sharp razor. Now we see he had locks. He said, hey man, cut off some of those locks, and also cut off some hair from your beard. So when you're thinking about what we look like, we were black people. Many of us wore locks, not everybody, but we had locks and we had beards. See, you see me walking around today, our people, they don't want to wear a beard, but we had beards. I ain't talking about if you can't grow one, that's a different thing, but we had beards. It even tell you the law about the beard. It tells you in the Bible about Aaron's beard in Psalms, and how the beard was to his skirts and the anointing oil dripped down his beard. You read about those messages from David, how they were ashamed because they cut off half their clothes where their buttocks were showing, and then they cut off half their beard. They had beards. I got a relative of mine. I saw him recently, and he was growing out his beard. I said, man, that's nice. And his wife, my aunt, said, I don't like it. I said, man, that looks manly. That man need a beard. I'm around with a baby face. He need a beard. But that's how they look. So it says, he cut off some of that beard and some of that hair, and then he says, then take the balances to weigh and divide the hair. Verse 2.
Thou shalt burn with fire a third part of it in the midst of the city.
You're going to burn a third part in the midst or the middle of the city. Go ahead.
When the days of the siege are fulfilled.
When the days of the siege are fulfilled. I'm going somewhere with this. Because that siege was during the time of the Babylonian captivity that I mentioned earlier. Go ahead.
And thou shalt take a third part and smite it about with a knife,
Mm-hmm.
and a third part thou shalt scatter in the wind. I will draw the sword after them.
Go ahead.
Thou shalt also take thereof a few in number and bind them in thy skirt.
Go ahead.
Then take of them again and cast them into the midst of the fire and burn them in the fire. For thereof shall a fire come forth into all the house of Israel.
So he used his hair to be a sign to Israel what he was doing, because he said destruction is coming for you. He said, for therefore shall a fire come forth into all the house of Israel. Verse 5.
Thus said the Lord God, this is Jerusalem. I have set it in the midst of the nations and countries that are round about.
This is what's going to happen to you. Now let's go to Jeremiah, the writings of Jeremiah, Lamentations. That's who wrote Lamentations, Jeremiah. He is also talking about this siege. Okay? And we're going to see in him talking about the siege indirectly what Israel looked like. This is Lamentations, right after the book of Jeremiah. It's right between Jeremiah and Ezekiel. Let's pick it up in Lamentations 4 and verse 1. These are the servants that were sent by God to tell the people, to warn the people of God. This is Lamentations 4, and we're going to pick it up at verse 1. Lamentations 4 and verse 1. When you're ready, go ahead.
How has the gold become dim? How is the most fine gold changed?
Go ahead.
The stones of the sanctuary are poured out in the top of every street.
So what is he talking about? He's talking about the siege and what's going on. And he's talking about the horrible things during this siege. Jerusalem is besieged by the Babylonians. Same thing that Ezekiel was telling you was going to happen. Verse 2.
The precious sons of Zion, comparable to fine gold.
How are they?
How are they esteemed as earthen pictures, the work of the hands of the potter?
So he's talking about these sons of Zion, comparable to fine gold. Verse 3.
Even the sea monsters draw out the breast. They give suck to the young ones. The daughter of my people has become cruel like the ostriches in the wilderness.
So there's a change. You're talking about a people who were supposed to have it all, so to speak. Have the wisdom of God through the Torah, through the instruction of the law, statutes, commandments, ordinances, judgments of God. They have the material things that they would need. They had the hedge of God around them. But when they continued to sin against God, that was taken away from them. Now they are a destroyed people. That's why when you look at us today, that's what we are. We are a destroyed people because we have forsaken our God. And therefore we have no protection. But go ahead. What's going on? Go ahead. Verse 4.
The tongue of the suckling child cleaveth to the roof of his mouth for thirst. The young children ask bread, and no man breaketh it unto them.
So now the children are suffering in this siege. See, a siege is when the army would compass the city. They would surround the city. They wouldn't let anything in or out, and they would just sit there and wait you out. Because at a certain point in time, you're going to need food. So they would starve you out. So he's describing this. He said the children, the babies, their tongue is dry, it's clinging to the roof of their mouth for thirst. The little ones, they want bread, but there's nothing to eat. Verse 5.
Then they did feed delicately, are desolate in the streets.
Those delicate ones are desolate now. They are destroyed. Go ahead.
They that were brought up in scarlet embraced dunghill.
Those who had it all embraced the dunghill. Verse 6.
For the punishment of the iniquity of the daughter of my people is greater than the punishment of the sin of Sodom.
This is the judgment of God. For the iniquity of the people, it said, for my people, the iniquity of the daughter of my people is greater than the punishment of the sin of Sodom. And he rained down fire and brimstone on Sodom and Gomorrah. He said, I was overthrown as in a moment, and no hand stayed on her or laid on her. Verse 7.
Her Nazarites were purer than snow.
Her Nazarites. Now we read again about these Nazarites. It said they were purer than snow. But I mean, these were people that were set apart or separated for God amongst the holy nation or sanctified nation. So it said her Nazarites were purer than snow. Go ahead.
They were whiter than milk.
Talking about righteousness. We're not talking about they phenotype in that regard. Go ahead.
They were more ruddy in body than rubies. Their polishing was of sapphire.
Now, some people will read that ruddy and say, oh, it's talking about that they white. See, they white like a turmeric. No. Again, we come in various shades of brown. It said they were more ruddy in body than rubies. Their polishing was of sapphire. He's talking about a healthy countenance, a healthy look. But what about during the siege? What was going on with these people? Verse 8.
Their visage is blacker than a coal.
Their visage or their appearance now is blacker than a coal. Go ahead.
They are not known in the streets.
Mm-hmm.
Their skin cleaved to their bones. It is withered. It has become like a stick.
So now they become darker in the siege. He tells it in a different way in Lamentations 5. Let's just go right to Lamentations 5. Go ahead. Because now he's praying unto the Lord. Go ahead.
Remember, O Lord, what has come upon us. Consider and behold our reproach.
Go ahead.
Our inheritance is turned to strangers, our houses to aliens. We are orphans and fatherless. Our mothers are as widows.
So what's become of us? The inheritance has been given to strangers. Our houses have been taken by strangers. That's aliens. He said, we are orphans and fatherless. Our mothers are as widows. That's what happens in war. So it said, we have drunken our water for money. Our water sold unto us. Go ahead, verse 5.
Our necks are under persecution. We labor and have no rest.
Go ahead.
We've given a hand to the Egyptians and to the Assyrians to be satisfied with bread.
We've gone every other place trying to find an answer. The answer is turning back to God. Go ahead.
Our fathers have sinned and are not. But we have borne their iniquity.
Go ahead. Our situation is that the direct result of what they've done. Verse 8.
Servants have ruled over us.
Things are upside down. We were supposed to be the nation above all people. We're not supposed to be on the bottom. We think that's the natural place for us right now. We're not supposed to be on the bottom of these people. Who told you that? These people. They told you that you were supposed to be a perpetual slave. You were cursed by God. You're the son of Ham. That's not even what the Bible says. Canaan was cursed, but nevertheless, that's even what we think. We've internalized that lie. We think we're supposed to be on the bottom. But when you sin against God as a holy nation, that's what happens. Servants have ruled over us. There is none that doth deliver us out of their hand. We get our bread with the peril of our lives. We're risking our life trying to eat because of the sword of the wilderness. What about our skin? Verse 10.
Our skin was black like an oven because of the terrible famine.
Because of the terrible famine, our skin was black like an oven. Now I want to go to this Babylonian relief, because here we see this relief of the Babylonians. Well, first of all, before I say that, I wanted to read how this was written in the Wycliffe Bible. The Wycliffe Bible is the precursor to the King James Version. You know, when they were trying to write the Bible in English, because at this time it was written in Latin, the Catholic Church didn't want people to read it, because they didn't want you to know what was in there. They could just tell you anything. These people, like Wycliffe, they made this Bible, and some of them trying to interpret the Bible into English were killed. But just to show you even how it's said in this Bible, Lamentations 5:10 reads, our skin is burnt as a furnace, of the face of tempest of hunger. Our skin is burned like from a furnace, from being buffeted from the tempest of hunger. I'm reading that because a lot of times we come to things like this, people who want us to continue with the common narrative that Israel was not a black people, they were trying to twist what's said here. But you know from context what's going on. And here we see something taken from back captivity. This is in the Louvre Museum in Paris, France. What do they have? These are Israelites in Babylonian captivity. What do they have? They have locks, beards, just like what was described. Just like what was described. Let's go to Luke, the Gospel according to Luke, chapter 19. Luke chapter 19 and verse 41. Because we're going to transition a little bit to the dispersion, total dispersion of a people, and see where they were dispersed, and even see remnants of how these remnants look. This is Luke 19, and we're going to pick it up at verse 41. Because that same city where the people were starving and famished from the famine and the siege, You read further, it said the women were even ravished in that city. This is what the Messiah, he lamented over this city. This is Luke 19, and we're going to pick it up at verse 41. When you're ready, go ahead.
And when he was come near, he beheld the city and wept over it, saying that thou hast known, even thou, at least in this thy day, the things which belong to thy peace, but now they are hid from thine eyes.
If you had only acknowledged and adhered to the things that will bring you peace, he said, but now they are hid from your eyes. Ultimate desolation, destruction is imminent at this time. Verse 43.
For the day shall come upon thee,
What's going to happen?
that thine enemy shall cast a trench about thee.
Same thing that happened in the days of Nebuchadnezzar and the Babylonians. It said, for the day shall come upon thee, that thine enemy shall cast a trench about thee and do what?
And compass thee round, and keep thee in on every side.
They're going to siege you. Besiege you. Verse 44.
And shall lay thee even with the ground, and thy children within thee.
Uh-huh.
And they shall not leave in thee one stone upon another, because thou knewest not the time of thy visitation.
You didn't know the time of your visitation. You didn't acknowledge me as a people. Father sent his son, but you didn't acknowledge it. You didn't understand and knew it's not the time of thy visitation. And because of this, as a direct result, you're going to be besieged and be laid even with the ground and those precious babies. Just like in the days of the siege in Jeremiah and Ezekiel, their tongues will cleave until the roofs of their mouths, and the little ones are going to beg for bread. And the delicate ones are going to be desolate. That's what's going to happen. Now let's go to reference 5 here. And we see the final dispersion into the interior of Africa, because this took place in 70 AD. Okay, I'm not going to read all this. But this is from Jerusalem in Bible Times. It's talking about this time, and it makes a significant point at the very end. It says in 66 AD, the war rebellion against the Romans broke out, and in 70 AD, the siege of the city was begun by Titus. After a long, stubborn resistance, which necessitated that every wall and every court of the town should be conquered separately, the city at last fell in September of 70 AD. The temple and other principal buildings were burned, and Titus gave orders that the city should be razed to the ground. He said, you're going to be laid even with the ground. Everything's going to be torn down. And that's what the historical record says. Even when you look at the Ark of Titus, it still exists. You can look at it. The Ark of Titus shows Roman soldiers carrying away the menorah and the ark. They carried all these things. It says, with this event, it says, except the wall enclosing Herod's palace, that was left as a fortress for the Roman garrison. With this event, ancient Jerusalem came to an end. So that was it. So now you have a severing of who these people are. They are totally disconnected from the land. There's no going back like they did in the days of Ezra and Nehemiah. It said, up to this time, the life of the city had been uninterrupted in spite of all the disasters that had befallen. And the thread of historical tradition in regard to localities had not been severed. But after this event, there was no longer any continuity with the past. That's why Negroes are walking around talking about the Egyptian. Because our connection with our past, with our land, has totally been severed. So we don't have a clue. So we grasping for anything that look black. Or we'll just be down with somebody else. This is from Stephen's Africa's Legacies of Urbanization. He says, under the Ptolemies, Cyrenaica, northeastern Libya, had become the home of many Jews, and their numbers in this part of Africa were greatly increased. Why? By the Romans. When Emperor Vespasian deported many others, increased after a rebellion against Roman rule in Palestine and the destruction of Jerusalem in 70 AD. So it's telling the same thing. And where is Israel always fleeing? They're always going south. They're not going up into Europe. They're running from the European. It says, while some of them remain in coastal settlements, which we'll talk about in a second, others migrated where? It says deep into the Great Sahara. Sometimes becoming nomads, and at other times settling in towns and cities of the African interior. So now you got to show me around this time you have to show me where all these European looking Jews, were they in the Sudan? They in Angola. I'm not talking about when they came as colonizers. I'm talking about at this time. No, you don't have a record of that. But the next one is accounts of Israelites in Africa. Okay, and I want to show you this because this is the Lachish relief. This is the dispersion of the 10 tribes. And by the Assyrians, this happened in 721, 722. And these are what they had long been dispersed throughout the world, particularly in Africa and other places around that area. And this is from the Assyrian siege. When they sieged it, just like the Babylonians sieged Jerusalem, you see what they look like? These, again, they have cornrows and beards. Again, these are not Europeans. And the Syrians were extremely brutal. They would flay you alive, skin you alive like a fish. Eat them up, being blunt, but that's just what they did. So this is Tacitus. He was a historian, a senator, a governor, and in his histories, he writes, again, thinking about what these people look like, what did the ancients say? Now, notice he lived about 56 years. He said 56 AD and died 120 AD. He wrote that many assert that the Hebrews were of Ethiopian origins. Why am I reading that? Because again, this Roman believed that, oh, they must have come from the Ethiopians. He said many thought that at the time. They would not think that if they looked like the Romans. They would not think that if they looked like those from Gaul or France. Not going to read all this. But I wanted to touch upon this because when you go into accounts outside of mainstream American works and you go to things like this man was a Spaniard. And this is from this book here, The Black Jews of Africa, History, Religion, and Identity. And what you're starting to find now is a lot of European or even so-called Jews are starting to have to address the claim of so many black people throughout Africa saying that they are Jews. And they have to explain that thing away. So they are trying to, if you notice, they are going into these villages, they are going into these places, and they are putting forth their notion of Judaism. You don't find Judaism in the Bible, but that's what they're going to do. And they're talking about DNA tests. How a frog gonna make a DNA test? Well, I'm gonna compare my DNA to you. You a fraud. So and then there's a whole problem with the testing in and of itself not being accurate. Now, if you got a paternity test, that's yours. But I'm talking about because for example, I saw one company, just to show you what I'm talking about, they had triplets. And these triplets, they took a DNA test to find out their lineage. All three of them had something different. Now, you shouldn't have something different about y'all triplets. So that's just what I'm talking about. But they have to act as gatekeepers for this. So you see documentaries about this thing. Could it be that the Limba of Zimbabwe and South Africa are indeed have some lineage with the Kohani or the priest in Israel right now? No, those people are perpetrating a fraud. And as I heard one Nigerian say who claims to be an Israelite, he said, man, we don't need to be justified by these white people. How they gonna justify something they in fraud? But in this work, she points out that there are a lot of different accounts of travelers. You see this in a lot. You read Arab sources. You see this a lot. This man, Benjamin of Tudela, excuse me, he was a so-called Jew. But you see, when he was living, we're talking 1,000 years after the Messiah. Now he goes traveling all over the world, and then he goes into Africa, and he sees some men. It says in Ghana, and he describes them as the sons of Cush, who read the stars and are all black in color. You see? Did you read that the Muslim travelers or the Arab travelers, they were saying the same things. When they went into Africa, they kept coming across these groups of people who were saying they were Israelites. This is a picture. This is from another book. This is from this book here. This is from this book here, Hebrewisms of West Africa from Nile to Niger with the Jews, Joseph J. Williams. And this man, I believe, was well, he's a European, but he was with a sect of the Catholic Church. I think it was a Jesuit, if I'm not mistaken. But nevertheless, you see, he puts in his book this painting by Sir Henry Morton Stanley of Ashanti ambassadors. I don't know if you can see this in this picture, but this is a priest, and he talks about how that is similar to what the Levitical priests were wearing. In Ashanti, because they said the people of Ashan or Ashanti were Israelites as well. Again, these are the claims that are being made. Here you have Israelites all over the world. Mass majority of our people, they took us off the west coast of Africa from places like Nigeria. Here we got Israelites of Nigeria. Usually you see they have the Yoruba as well, but usually they are the Igbo, excuse me. It's spelled in two ways, I-B-O or I-G-B-O, pronounced Igbo, and many say that Igbo means Hebrew. You got Israelites in Sudan. Israelites of Uganda. And when I talk about there being a gatekeeping process, you see they have their scroll, you see that there's this push to to practice Judaism as opposed to what's in the book. See, one thing about it, we'd have had enough of following some other people. We don't need to follow no converts, but we the people. We need to be the leaders of this thing. They shouldn't be coming among us teaching us nothing. We should be teaching the word. But see, that's in some of these communities, they came into a particular thing later, but many of them are ancient. He had Israelites of Ghana, like I was mentioning earlier. The ram's horn. But you see, they have the influence of Judaism. Here we had a member of Zimbabwe and South Africa who said they came, they oral traditions, and they still go through processes and customs talking about how they were taken from their land. And all the things from even Israel all the way through Yemen, through Sinai, and how they ended up in Zimbabwe and South Africa. They tell that and they continue to tell it in their oral traditions. That's the limbo. It's the Beta Israel, aka Falasha, who of Ethiopia. They look like some Negroes in New York City. They catching 18 double hockey sticks over there right now. Because they're talking about the Israeli government. Notice I said Israeli, not Israelite. The Israeli government is talking about sending everybody from Africa out of there. Okay? They try to get the Africans out of there because you got a lot of people that are not claiming to be Israelites, but other people of Africa who have come there just like they're going to places in Europe, just like they're coming to America. Why are they coming to these places? Because the European has ruined the place where they live. So they try to escape. But they have consistently called discrimination and oppression, just like over here. I'll give you an example of this. The birth control, Depo-Provera, historically has been forced on the Ethiopian that claim to be Israelites, that they allowed to come over there so they can decrease their numbers. The vast majority of people that take that long-term birth control, Depo-Provera, back in the day when they were giving that more so than now, that was them. It wasn't the Israeli woman. And they would tell them things like, if you don't take this, we're gonna kick you out of here. They would threaten them. They were basically forcing them to take it. Just like how they would do black women in this country back in the day. They would give them hysterectomies without their knowledge. They did that all the time. Matter of fact, Fannie Lou Hamer, the great civil rights activist, it happened to her. She went in for a minor procedure and found out that they had took away her ability to bear a child. And the only way she found it out was because the person she was working for was talking about it. Because they knew the doctor. They even called it, they had a name for it. It was called the Mississippi appendectomy. That's how common it was. This is in Timbuktu, that famed city. When you talk about scholarship, I don't know if there is a city that is more famous for having great scholars than Timbuktu. Here, Israelites of Timbuktu after an Islamic attack. One thing Timbuktu was known for were the books that it contained on every subject. I gave you some references here. We're not going to go through all these references, but I wanted to give you some references here just because in these references you see over and over again Israel in and out of Africa. You constantly see in and out of Africa over and over again. So it be, you know, we don't really take that into consideration. Really, we don't really talk about that. But they were either taken into Africa, running into Africa to escape something, or even making settlements throughout Africa. If you notice, I'll just read one. Let's go to Acts 2. I want to read one just to show you what I'm talking about. Let's pick it up in Acts 2, the 10th chapter. Acts 2, the 10th chapter, and we're going to pick it up. And we'll pick it up at verse 10. Because here we have on the day of Pentecost, right? The apostles are there. And here we talk about, you know, the Holy Spirit being poured upon them, and they hearing the word of God preached in the language of the countries in which they were scattered. And let's read some of those languages. Some of those countries. Let's just read verse 10, Acts 2 and verse 10. Are you ready? Go ahead.
Tyre, Pamphylia, in Egypt, and the parts of Libya, around Cyrene, and the strangers of Rome, Jews and proselytes.
So here, what were they coming from? They had already been scattered. They were all over, don't get me wrong. Israel was all over, just like Israel was all over now. Where the main place they were in Libya, they were in Egypt, they were in parts of Africa. That's what even you got Simon of Niger, that means Simon the Black. They are scattered everywhere. Let's go to, what's the next one?
Two.
That was next. Now I ain't go over the maps here. I'm sorry. Let me go to the next one. Here, I just put a couple because they're a lot. I just put a few. These are some of the, when you do research, these are some of the places in which they had Israelite settlements in Africa. So read 125, Israelites established a settlement in Ghana, 300. They were established the Elephantine garrison. As you can see even sketches of that. Libya in 640, you had this queen, Kahina, who they still don't know. She was a Berber queen, but they said she was an Israelite. She was saying, let the Jews unite with the Jews that were there to fight against Roman and Arab incursions. They was eventually defeated. Those are some of these settlements. We were all over. Like the one reference said, they went deep into the interior of Africa. Here's a map. This is one map. There are quite a few maps that you can look at. That this one is from 1747, and if you notice, it says right on the map, this is Proper Guinea, and they would name it after whatever they were getting from that area. So they had the Gold Coast, and where you had a slave coast, that in particular, where you had a slave coast, it says right there. Now this is West Africa. It says Kingdom of Judah, right on the map, where it says slave coast. Even one of the huge ports for slavery was Yehuda, which again means Judah. So it is only recently, now that we're not seeing these things, we go with the common narrative But it's all in front of you. The Bible is the ultimate source, but you can use history and archaeology to even prove out, or just to support, which is what I'm doing, just to support what the Bible is telling you. Let's go to Deuteronomy 28. So my father's going to deal more so with the curses and the captivity and all that, but I do want to touch upon it a little bit in this regard, just to show that there were a people that were scattered. And we seeing what those people look like. This is Deuteronomy, because these people were scattered. Deuteronomy, and we'll see how they were scattered. Deuteronomy 28, and we're just going to read a couple verses here. Deuteronomy 28 and verse 68. Deuteronomy 28 and verse 68. I love the word of God. Because it's showing you salvation, but it's also showing you about yourself. First step in education is to know thyself. We don't know ourselves as a people. There's been a disconnect from our history. But when we pick up the word of God, we can reconnect ourselves to ourselves. If that makes any sense. We can understand who we are. And we can understand what God, most importantly, what God requires of us. And we can understand why we're in the position that we're in right now and how we got there. Because all the other explanations are lacking. This is Deuteronomy 28 and verse 68. When you ready, go ahead.
And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships.
Egypt was synonymous with the house of bondage. I touched upon how Israel went into a land for 400 years and they worked. Egypt is synonymous with bondage. That was Israel's first bondage. There were many more to come, but this is the first one. That's why when you read in Exodus 20, it says, I'm the Lord thy God, which have brought you out of the house, out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Okay, so when you read Egypt here, it's not telling you that he's going to bring you into Egypt again with ships, like literal Egypt. He's saying you're going into bondage, into captivity, into slavery via or by way of ships. So it says, the Lord shall bring me into Egypt again with ships. Go ahead.
By the way whereof I spake unto thee.
And what's going to happen?
Thou shalt see it no more again.
You're not going to see a land again. Go ahead.
And there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you.
You're going to be sold, and you're going to be on ships, and you're going to be sold into slavery unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you. Meaning, what does it mean buy? You're going to be bought, but you're not going to be redeemed. Those slave owners who are looking at the nakedness of the women that were on the auction block, they bought you. Those who looked at the big bucks on the auction block, they bought you. Oh, he sure gonna pick some cotton. They bought you, but you were not redeemed from your situation, even until this day. But let's pick up something in verse 64. Verse 64, when you ready, go ahead. And the Lord shall scatter thee among all people. You're gonna go into captivity, you're gonna be scattered all over the world. Go ahead. From the one end of the earth even unto the other. There thou shalt serve other gods, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone. So what's going to happen in your captivity is you are going to serve false gods wherever you go. Right now, our people, that's all we do. We serving the false gods, even under the guise of Jesus, under the name of Jesus Christ. We are serving falsely where we're at right now. If we're not worshiping that false god, Allah, we worshiping supposedly the God of this Bible falsely, based on vain traditions and customs of men. That's all we're doing wherever we're at. And in that, see, that's the one thing again, like I talked about the audacity of white supremacy. They put their spin on it, gave you what you should worship in slavery, and then they gave, oh, by the way, this is God, this is Christ, and it was a white man. You think about the implications of that. If you are a slave, or even if you've been told that you are less than, consistently, directly or indirectly, by somebody telling you that, or somebody never showing you in a positive light, you automatically think your mind is something else. Your mind, your subconscious would think, hey, either God is white, or this man is his representative, or he is God. How do you think they were looking at the slave master? That's why the house will be on fire. He run and put it out. Because you are enslaved in the mind. And that's what Christianity has done to the world. Us in particular, but the world, it has enslaved the minds of the inhabitants of the earth. Not just through the doctrine, but also through the imagery, which I would argue is more powerful than the words of the book. Because most of us in here, nobody in here would dare argue that Jesus is black. You know it, but when you think about him in your head, you see a white man. Most of us. Even after what we know, we think about Jesus, we got to erase the white man in our head. The image is more powerful than the words that you read. Let's go to Revelation 1. And this is even stronger, even regardless or in spite of what the Bible says about your Messiah, your master. See, white and black people have a problem with this. This is Revelation 1 and verse 13, because in his captivity, see, the Messiah came unto us directly, said, but you didn't know the time of your visitation. So these slave owners and these crackers of the whip gave you another Jesus. With a different doctrine, he looked totally different. He looked just like the slave owner. This is Revelation 1 and verse 13. Because what does the Bible say he looked like? When you ready, go ahead.
And in the midst of the 7 candlesticks are like unto the Son of Man, clothed with a garment down to the foot, girt about the paps with a golden girdle. So now this is the Son of Man. This is none other than the Messiah. And what did he look like? It is glory, but what did he look like? This is Revelation 1 and verse 14. When you ready, go ahead. His head and his hairs were white like wool.
So now his head and his hairs were white like wool. Go ahead.
As white as snow. And his eyes were as a flame of fire. And his feet like unto fine brass.
Wait a minute. His hair was white like wool, as white as snow. But then it said, and his feet like unto fine brass, as if they what?
As if they burned in the furnace.
Now, if you burn something in the furnace, it's going to be dark. Now, he won't walk around with some dark feet and some European hands and face. His head and his hairs were white like wool, as white as snow, and his eyes was a flame of fire, and his feet like unto fine brass, as if they burned in the furnace. And his voice is the sound of many waters. But when you hear the common narrative, they would tell you that, oh, Jesus, well, they would even say, well, he wasn't white. Because you say, hey, Jesus was white. They say, yeah, technically he wasn't. Now you got all these images of him being white. I'm not even going to show, I refuse to show those images. Raphael and Michelangelo and Leonardo da Vinci, that came well over 1,000 years later to make these false images. I'm not going to show you those. But you say, hey, he's not white. They say, well, yeah, you're right, because technically he's in the Middle East. He would be olive color. And let me tell you something. First of all, the people in the so-called Middle East right now are not the people that were there before. Secondly, why do you have to have a Middle East in the first place? How you got a Middle and East? No, you came up with the term to separate Egypt from Africa. See? Egypt. See, they even teach that not Egypt. They act like Egypt's not on the African continent. Egypt is in Africa. And if Egypt is in Africa, so is Israel. And furthermore, if you really want to look at it, so is what you call in the Middle East. That's all Africa. You look at the Teutonic Plate, you look at the zoology, that's Africa. But this was a black man that's described in the book of Revelation, written by John. So when you ask, well, how do you explain this? You say, well, hey, you know what? Color don't even matter. Color don't even matter. How does it not matter when you've gone to such extent to make him white? It does matter. It matters to the young man in the hood who has all this self-hatred. And so he hates himself. This is going on subconsciously. We are full of self-hatred. You know that by what we do to ourselves. I'll give you an example. Right now, there is an epidemic of skin bleaching in Jamaica. You got whole family skin bleaching. I'm not talking about they do it once in a while. They put skin bleach on their face, on their neck, on their hands 3, 4, 5 times a day. And the dermatologists and doctors on the island are saying, hey, this is cancerous. They have to address that problem. But why are they doing that? Self-hatred. Why would you take your hair? That's like in that movie or that documentary, Good Hair, where he's talking to the chemist and he takes the same chemicals that is in the loud and in the relaxer, and he's burning glass. He's putting, he's dipping these cups and things. They burn it off. And Chris Rock said, black women put that in their hair. And he said, oh my, why would they do that? Why in the world would they do it? Self-hatred. Self-hatred. But if you say, hey, brother, you know who you are? You're the people of this book. You know that one they talk about all the time that you heard about, that grandma, big mama will tell you about? He looked just like you. Perhaps we would now we have to do what the book say to do. It don't just say that's not the gospel that you Israel. See, some got caught up in that. We Israelites, now what? Now what? But see, so color does matter. I've talked, somebody very dear to me. Somebody very dear to me, my grandfather, when he was living, he said, we had this discussion. I said, man, I didn't say it like that. I said, Big Daddy, Jesus was a black man. Well, Jesus was all colors. No, he's not. He wasn't. He was a black man. But so that's what we've gotten in Christianity. Let's go to Daniel, the 7th chapter. Because we almost finished. Even in Daniel, he describes the appearance of the Son of Man. He asked something pertaining to his hair. I even heard one so-called preacher, a Baptist, and Caucasian, European, and he wants to talk about black people saying Jesus was black and scoff and mock. It said his hair was white like wool. And it said it was like wool, but then he didn't even address the burned grass feet. See? People do what they want to do. See, that's why that's gonna get a lot of people cut off. You got some white people that say, man, I really don't care what they look like. I want to serve the true and living God. You got some people, but racism is gonna destroy a lot of people. Because they hear something, they say, hold on. You said they see that, they don't want to deal with it no more. They don't want to deal with it at all. And you got some black people who will fight you tooth and nail when you say, hey, you the people of the book. That is asinine. You got other people, everybody else trying to be you. You didn't suffer the curses and don't want to be the people. But Daniel 7 and verse 9. Daniel 7 and verse 9. What did this prophet write concerning the Son of Man? When you ready, go ahead. I
beheld till the thrones were cast down, and the Ancient of Days did sit, whose garment was white as snow.
Like what?
And the hair of his head like the pure wool.
And his hair of his head, now we're talking about the texture. Back to phenotype, like the pure wool. His throne was like the fiery flame, and his wheels as burning fire. So similar to what you read in Revelation, talking about his hair, here we see it's like the pure wool. But it wasn't just white, it was like the pure wool. Now I want to read some in Romans, the 11th chapter. And why am I reading out of Romans? Because I want to read the mindset ultimately that it seems that Paul was speaking against, which is what you have seen in Christianity today. Under the umbrella of Christendom, there is so much arrogance. So much arrogance to change the word of God. To make the people, the depictions of the people something that they're not. It comes out of way of thinking. And Paul, it seems that he warns against this. This is Romans the 11th chapter. We're going to pick it up at verse 13. Romans 11 and verse 13. When you're ready, go ahead.
For I speak to you Gentiles, inasmuch as I am an apostle of the Gentiles, of magnifying mine office.
Now he's speaking to you Gentiles. You heathen. You go in, meet you people that don't know God. But this letter is specifically to who? The Romans. So he said, well, I speak to you Gentiles. Gentiles, inasmuch as I am the apostle or the ambassador or the messenger to the Gentiles, I magnify mine office. Verse 14.
If by any means I may provoke to emulation them which are my flesh, and might save some of them.
He said, by any means I might provoke some of mine to jealousy and save some of them. And we look at what, quite frankly, what these other nations have. You say, man, I wish I had that. Verse 15.
For if the casting away of them be the reconciling of the world, what shall the receiving of them be but life from the dead?
It is true, therefore, that you have an opportunity if you're from another nation. They said, for if the casting away of them be the reconciling of the world, what shall the receiving of them be? Those people that have been cast away, Israel, he says, what shall the receiving of them be but life from the dead? Let's go to verse, thank you, skip down to verse 18. When you're ready, go ahead.
Boast not against the branches.
He tells these that have been grafted in. What is it grafted in? You can have a cherry tree, and you can take a stem from another tree and put that on that tree, and that'll start to grow off that tree. You can have two fruits on the same tree. He said, you better not boast against the branches. He's talking about the natural branches. The ones that God came to directly, boast not against the branches. Go ahead.
But if thou boast, thou bearest not the fruit, but the root thee.
Then he's going to tell them about their situation. Go ahead.
Thou wilt say then, the branches were broken off, that I might be grafted in.
So you might be in the mindset that they were destroyed. They were cast away so I could be saved. Because I'm this. No. That's what the Pope said. You can't get salvation but by through Catholicism. Hypocrite. Thou will say then the branches were broken off that I might be grafted in. Well, verse 20.
Well, because of unbelief, they were broken off.
Because of our unbelief, our lack of faith, children of whom was no faith, they were broken off, and thou standest by faith. He says, what?
Be not high-minded.
But do what?
Fear.
Don't be high-minded. Don't be arrogant. You better fear. Don't think you something. And that's definitely the mindset you thinking you something. When you would literally change what the word of God is saying to your own belief system and then change the people that the word of God is talking about to look like you. That's arrogance. So it says, be not high-minded, but fear. Verse 21.
For God spared not the natural branches.
Go ahead.
For God spared not the natural branches. Take heed lest he also spare not thee.
See, what these people should have done was just accept what the same thing Israel should have did. Just accept what thus saith the Lord and submit to it. He said, for if God spared not the natural branches, you better take heed lest he also spare not thee. If you would kill your own children, what you do to somebody that's not your child? They ain't got a chance. Go ahead.
Behold, therefore, the goodness and severity of God.
You better behold, therefore, the goodness and severity of God. Go ahead.
On them which fell severity.
Surely severity has fallen upon his people. Go ahead.
But toward thee, goodness.
But toward thee, you have some mercy, being of another nation. Go ahead.
If thou continue in his goodness.
If. Two-letter word with so many implications. If. That's like but or however. If thou continue in his goodness, otherwise thou shalt what?
Otherwise thou also shalt be cut off.
See, you can lose it. And see what you did have early on, even amongst Europeans. These Europeans weren't keeping Sunday worship. These Europeans weren't keeping Easter and Christmas. These Europeans initially that had heard the gospel were dealing with it. Now, granted, they're coming just like us. It's a process. We are so far away from our culture, it's unreal. So they were very removed. But that's, and trying and striving. This is what these epistles of Paul are talking about. But it's a whole nother thing when you're going to straight up co-opt the situation. See, that's what Constantine did. He co-opted the situation and changed it and intermingled paganism with the belief system. And the whole world has gone after this. He's speaking to the Romans. I don't think it is a coincidence that he's writing to the Romans in this way, warning them of what they should not do, because it is Catholicism that came out of Rome. is the Holy Roman Empire. And all the Protestant denominations, many of those backwood churches that our great-great-grandparents came from, come out of the Catholic Church because they come out of the Protestant faith. Or if you come out of Church of God in Christ, you influenced by the apostolics. You a Baptist. Many of us, probably some Baptists up here. I can just look at the crowd and tell. Some Baptists up here. I already know. Let's go ahead. Let's keep it.
Verse 23.
Thank you.
And they also, if they abide not, still in unbelief, shall be grafted in. For God is able to graft them in again.
Go ahead.
For thou wert cut out for the olive tree, which is wild by nature, and wert grafted contrary to nature into a good olive tree. How much more shall these, which be the natural branches, be grafted into their own olive tree?
All right, he's talking about them being grafted back in. Us as a people coming back into the knowledge of ourselves. And that's really what's happening. That's really what's happening. I mean, granted, we got a long way to go. I'm just giving an example. That makes it seem like something small, but when you got a mainstream rapper talking about don't call me black no more, I'm an Israelite. Now, do I think he has all full understanding? None of us have full understanding. But you hearing that, millions of people hearing that. You see it with social media exploding on a smaller scale compared to other things, but more and more people are coming to the knowledge of themselves, and that's what's going to happen prior to his coming. So when they say, hey, and they trying to come, say, we the people, and then you got some people who claim to believe in God of other nations saying, no, y'all not the people. What you talking about is nonsense, when in actuality it's not. You in trouble. Well, go ahead.
Verse 25. For I would not, brother, that ye should be ignorant of this mystery.
Don't be ignorant. Go ahead.
That ye should be wise in your own conceit.
Don't lean to your own understanding. Go ahead.
That blindness in part has happened to Israel until the fullness of the Gentiles be come in.
It's happened in part. See, all of us not blind, but it's happened in part to Israel until the fullness of the Gentiles be coming, or to the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. But this is the last thing I want to show you, because out of Rome they gave you your version of Christianity, and then they gave you a white Christ, gave you images and depictions of him. You know that old episode of Good Times. Florida got that white Christ. JJ painted Ed Wino as Christ. And then they actually read Revelation 1. Try to slide it in there. I'm going back, excuse me. Again, brass, wool. This is considered the oldest depiction of Jesus. And again, let me say this in showing you these things. I'm going to show you some images. I want to qualify this. Obviously, this is not to worship or reverence in any kind of way any of these pictures that I'm about to show you. But what it does show is simply that the earliest depictions were of black people. So now this is from 235 AD. You got to think about Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci, Raphael. We're talking about 1,000 years plus when they come up with these Europeanized paintings. So it says this one is called, and if you know, if you can look at it, this is a black man standing up here. It's called The Healing of the Paralytic. It was found in Europos, Syria in 235. This is from Italy. This is Jesus, right in the middle, and the apostles. From the 4th century, the catacombs, the Saint Domitilla, Rome, Italy. I saw some people that they thought I had made a cartoon from. I'm like, no, this is a cartoon. I ain't do this. This is in the catacombs from the 4th century. This is the earliest, one of the earliest known images of Jesus and the disciples in the Coptic Museum in Cairo, Egypt. See, these are not Europeans. Now, you see those who occupy the office of the pontiff. What are they doing? They bowing down. But who are they bowing down to? And again, you shouldn't be referencing these because this stuff is idolatry. But even in their early idolatry, they had the right color. That's the Black Madonna. They bow down to, not granted. You know, something like, well, that's the mother and the son worship. That's totally what it is. It's not G. They worshiping the God, the source. But they had the right color. And these Black Madonnas are all over Europe. You have hundreds of them. All over here. Notice this is in Europe. And notice this congregation. They got the Black Madonna. This is from Barcelona. Now they say it was made by Luke in 54 AD. I don't believe Luke made. You know, they've been making up stuff. Here's some Justinian made. He made a coin. Now this is 685 to 711 AD. But he makes a coin that supposedly they said that this is him. This is a long time after Jesus was on earth, but they give him kinky hair in the image. His hair is different from that. That's on the back. Here we have a depiction of Abraham, who we started talking about. This is from 320 AD. See, these are not white people in the earliest depictions of Jesus and the Israelites. Samson. Now, he don't have the 7 locks. I'm just dealing with color. This is also from Syria. That's a synagogue painting. Now that you know that's not accurate when it's talking about Moses and the Red Sea crossing, because you know Moses probably look much older than that. Nevertheless, these are not white people. And here go the 3 Hebrew boys. All of them got afros. All of them got afros. I think it's the last one. Yeah, that's the last one. All of them have afros. There's other pictures I could have showed. We right on time. And with that, brothers and sisters, that's Black history as told by the Bible, the color of Israel. That's part 1. My father's going to bring the rest in a 4-part series. And it is always my prayer that you will edify. We'll stand up, face Jerusalem, and close out.
Our Father which art in heaven,
Our Father which art in heaven,
hallowed be thy name.
hallowed be thy name.
Thy kingdom come.
Thy kingdom come.
Thy will be done in earth
Thy will be done in earth
as it is in heaven.
as it is in heaven.
Give us this day our daily bread.
Give us this day our daily
And
bread.
forgive us our debts.
And forgive us our
As
debts,
we forgive our debtors.
as we forgive our debtors.
And lead us not into temptation,
And lead us not into temptation,
but deliver us from evil.
but deliver us from evil.
Thine is the kingdom,
Thine is the
and
kingdom,
the power,
and the power,
and the glory,
and the glory,
forever.
forever.
Praise the Lord.
Praise the Lord.
He is good,
And he is good.
and his mercy endures forever.
And his mercy endures forever.
Praise the Lord God of Israel.
Praise the Lord God of Israel.
For he is good,
For he is good.
and his mercy endures forever.
And his mercy endures forever.
These things we pray in Jesus' name.
These things we pray in Jesus'
The
name.
Holy One of Israel,
The Holy One of Israel.
the Mighty One of Jacob,
I will Jacob,
Lord of Lords,
Lord of Lords,
King of
and
Kings.
King of Kings.
Amen.
I want to say real quick, I want to acknowledge those that are online. It's always a blessing to have you with us. Our website is down at the moment, but it'll be up shortly and definitely, or really definitely before the next Sabbath lesson. So my apologies for that. At this moment or at this time, if anybody had any questions pertaining to the Word of God, we're going to